Gumball is known for having different styles blended into the show. You have 2D characters, 3D characters, stop motion, CGI, traditional animation, puppetry, and live action. Over the years, the Amazing World of Gumball has had moments in which they changed their animation as a whole, hiring guest animators and completely reframing a scene to look different. And today, I'm going over their 9 best examples, starting off with The Amazing World of Gumball has gone through quite the amount of voice actors, to the point where if they had another season, and that season had Gumball change his voice actor, it would not be a big deal. Whereas if Tom Kenny wasn't SpongeBob, you'd guarantee a riot would ensue. That said, The Kids was a transition episode for 2 pairs of voice actors for Gumball and Darwin, as the former ones were going through puberty, and thus, they couldn't do the voices anymore. The latter ones would appear towards the end, and signify a new change in voice direction for the season. Within this episode, we have this really bouncy, ever-changing form of animation combined with a flat palette and nearly lineless art style that really signifies the idea of your animation running wild. I particularly love this part where his backpack gets turned into a giant robot. The jerkiness of the animation really sold the entire concept well. The only reason it's so low on the list is because while the idea and purpose of the animation change was to emphasize their intentions to stay kids because of all the perks they have while being kids, an animation change wouldn't be required, it's just a plus. Had they did this with normal animation and added in more jokes, it would have had a similar impact. But I do like all the transforming they do, and speaking of...
Hi, do you know where I can get my parking ticket validated? So he decided to close the doors of their castle. Forever. Oh, it's cool, man. I just realized that actually we're in medieval times and there's no such things as cars.
When it comes to transformations, Penny had one of the most impactful transformations, visually, story-wise, and metaphorically. While this episode focused more on her father's disapproval of it, later on in that episode, Gumball tells a story, which goes into this really weird and uncanny animation. This entire sequence is weird, with this blue, yellow, pinkish lighting that makes everything look a little off. There's very little if any textures, gradient sure, but everything looks smooth, from the trees to the cocoons. It looks like one of those indie 3D art films that you'd see on an art school's animation highlight page. Maybe it's because the sky is pink, or possibly that we see a lot of very human-like realistic stuff here. Either way, I do enjoy the art style regardless, especially when both the king and castle freak out, which leads to this weird bubble rotating chaos. The only reason it's so low on the list is somewhat because of the last reason as well, but also when put up against the others, it's just not as compelling. I'm not 100% sure if it's stop motion, claymation, 3D, or some kind of stop motion style portrayed through 3D in some aspects, but despite its lower perceived quality, it doesn't hurt the scene at all. It makes it look a little weird, but Gumball has always been a weird show. It's varied, using all different types of styles, including...
Wow, look at all the things we imagined when we used to play. Hey, look, high five guy. Good to see you, man. It's Sammy Sunscream, the Screaming Sun.
Puppetry. A lot of people are crazy excited at the fact that the people behind Don't Hug Me I'm Scared will be working alongside the Gumball team to make an episode. It is a debate as to whether this animation should count as a change in this list, considering that it's puppetry. But here's how I see it. It is a change in its normal animation, so it counts. Plus, it was handled really well. It has this bright, colorful, fun feeling without being cheesy, with the underlining tones that makes you feel like there's something off story-wise. I love this purplish character here. He just really brings the scene together as this initially cute, fuzzy, warm-looking character who, in all honesty, is just a few threads short of a finished puppet. I'm sure they animated certain segments within this, like the mouth and the eyes. It gets to this really crazy moment where they intimidate the two, and the composition was just great. The way they appear small and the other 2 puppets appear larger just really sets the tone of these enemies being really mean and scary. Plus, the explosions at the end were just awesome. It's fun and weird. And speaking of weird,
Give me your wallet. What is
What's wrong with you? Why'd you do that?
Sussy! She's a really weird character because she's essentially a Chin. Weird for us, fits right in with Elmore, kind of. As weird as she is, she's seen as an outcast, possibly because she's the closest to having human features. Towards the end of the episode, when Sussy realizes that Gumball and Darwin were trying to change her to make her look more acceptable, Sussy gives the duo the same googly eyes that she has, which leads into this crazy crayon animated piece. It's very jagged, pretty bare, it looks pretty amateurish, but not to the point where it looks poorly produced. Like for example, the characters don't jump around the page in a way that doesn't seem smooth enough. If you view things like the clouds or the trees or anything in the background, those wiggle around quite a lot. I just love the part where it looks like they're just swimming or zooming into Sussy's insanity. The character designs are what to be expected. Now this is a great example of an animation change being needed to create a purpose strong enough to warrant it. Without this, the message would have been really crippled. It's symbolizing that while not perfect, it's good enough. Very loose freeform, but what Sussy would have liked. Giving her perspective gives her character depth, and the understanding to make this episode very wholesome and heartwarming. Now yes, putting this over the puppets is a controversial choice, but I've never really cared about safety. Well, until...
Remember kids, please take care, because danger's lurking.
Honestly, the safety is not a very memorable episode despite it being one of the major Darwin episodes pre-season 5. It's a good episode upon rewatch, but the highlight is both seeing Dictator Darwin, but also this initial animation of this weird, distorted, overexposed in some areas, intentionally poorly animated at points safety short. It's straight out of something you'd see on YouTube Kids, except it has even better animation in those songs about finger videos. Yeesh. Anyway, I love this segment a lot. The animation was very well produced for the effect that it wanted to give off, and I personally think it came across eerie and creepy. The sound design for this makes the entire scene seem a little innocent, using sounds and songs that you'd expect in something for very young children. The distorted effect stays out of the way when needed to, and has a few moments where it comes back. It really makes a mark, like towards the end. The narrator, while not a part of the animation specifically, puts the cherry on top for this animated segment. His voice direction in this just makes the entire thing funny, especially when he yells at whatever the little teddy does wrong. Also, there's just something about this postcard flip transition and star Irish transition that fits. If there's anything this short isn't, it's cringe. But if you want to see that...
Hey, I need a photo for the school blog, that okay?
Could you get on with it, please?
It's just I wanted a photo of the cake.
You know, one day I'll get around to Gumball and the Hot Dog Guy centered episodes. They are my favorite examples of cringe comedy. One of these said episodes is The Cringe, a season 6 episode where Gumball and Hot Dog Guy try to make the cringiest moments to see if they can make regular moments feel normal again. They realize that they may have deep-rooted cringe-worthy memories of each other, which doesn't allow either of them to be comfortable around one another. They go back in time to realize what these moments may be. And this segment here honestly couldn't be better. The puppet aspect really made youthful Gumball look really well presented. The comedic segments weren't impeded because of an animation shift, but rather enhanced. And look, maybe I have a bias for transitions, but this VCR tape combined with a spinning memory blur transition effect is just so perfect that I'd love to recreate it for one of my videos. Not to mention the whole moving the cotton out of the way effect, which perfectly substitutes the whole fading in from white transition that many forms of media use to symbolize a flashback. Honestly, this is just one of those segments that you just have to go back and see because words cannot do it justice. However,
Your face is so greasy that people put on weight when they look at you!
It's not as good as I thought it'd be.
if there's one animation change that goes truly unnoticed when it comes to Gumball, it's the words. Granted, it was an early episode of Gumball, and the more popular animation changes would happen later on as the series grew in popularity. But this is another change in animation that couldn't have been replaced with its actual animation style. The way it emulates a fighting game to symbolize an actual fight between two people, who are now unfiltered, really sets the tone well. Plus, because it also injects tiny gaming aspects, such as move spamming, or one person unpausing the game unfiltered, unfairly, it's a layered, funny scene that really needs more attention. I'm sure like the rest of you, my favorite scene is Gumball Special. The entire part looks epic, from the colors they chose to a special attack in general. This is also one of those moments where the sound design was important to keep the scene believable, and also respect the art form in which it's. Side note, the background characters were a nice touch. Just a great mix of fighting game aesthetic mixed with elementary school fury. But speaking of,
I have been through the most grueling training on the planet.
Which school taught you? Was it Hokuto? Was it Konoha? Or was it Mr. Miyagi?
No, it was the school of life. I have raised 3 kids and 1 husband.
quite possibly one of the best known animation changes of Gumball, the Fury is a well-liked episode. I talked about this specific scene in my Scenes Like This a while back. It was around Mother's Day. It was clear that the highlight of the episode was the fight, which, to give it credit, is a really well done fight. I also just enjoy the character motivations in this, and the way that Nicole is just actually playing defense, just to get this over with. It is also clear that she does not want to harm Yuki. Yuki's blind fury and jealousy towards Nicole only makes her use up more energy, which leads into their combined amount of children getting into danger. I do think it goes without saying, the art style looks really good, but what really sold this for me is the chi blast and the kids talking. The way their legs move and the way they faint, all of that was just really funny to me. There's a lot of references in this episode, from Dragon Ball to Bayonetta and Tom and Jerry for some reason. Overall, one of the best animation changes, but not the best. If I were a betting man, I'd put the money on...
Are you sure? Because it doesn't look like we're moving.
Now, although the guest animated segment in this was when Nicole did a Joyful Burger ad, that didn't make the list, as you see. The real winner of that episode was the decomposition scene. Again, slightly controversial as if it counts towards a true animation shift, but it is a change in the norm, and you're not going to see what happens here in other episodes animation-wise. There's just so much to take in, from the loss of color, the degradation of textures, the lower poly count as the episode goes on, the drastic shift of audio quality, all the way down to them looking like post-it note sketches, right before their budget goes to nothing. Despite this intentionally looking poor, once again, it is the execution of it all that makes it larger than life. Honestly, I know a lot of people would compare the scene to Chowder, where they ran out of money for animation, but that and this are on two different lanes. In Chowder, they switched to live action. Here, they slowly remove one of the processes to make Gumball Gumball, and it clearly shows. There's a lot of layers that makes this look professional. It is also extremely meta, which a lot of people enjoy the show for. Not to mention, when they return to normal, there's this warp that they go through that shows all the layers. It just looks so cool, like wow. I was blown away then, and I'm blown away now. It's clear that the money is the best animation shift in Gumball. I really want to thank Jammy, Glass, and Peacebone on Discord for helping me assemble this list. I wanted to make sure that I found every animation shift before making it. If your choice didn't make the list, leave it down in the comments below. And if you haven't checked out my review on the money, here it is. And if you haven't seen my most recent Gumball review, The Silence, here that is as well. Special thanks to the patrons of May, and until next time, take care. Alpha out.